A non-copyright infringing Ming the Merciless clone is threatening Earth with being conquered. His name is Chaotica, and Kim tells him that he's not going to get away with it. Tom Paris to the rescue, or in this particular case, Captain Proton. He swoops in and frees both Kim and his companion, whose only contribution is to scream shrilly when a Technicolor doctor appears. It's the holodeck, of course, and the doc wants them to sod off so he can practice his opera. They've already overrun, and he wants his turn. A bit of a slap fight at the control panel ensues, and it starts throwing out sparks, prompting an alarm on the bridge. Chakotay calls to ask them what the fuck they're playing at, concerned at the prospect of losing a holodeck. The reason for that is because there's bugger all else to do. We're in an area of space that truly lives up to the name. There are no planetary systems for the next 2,500 light-years, and some science wibbly is blocking light from the stars beyond that. We've only been in here for 2 months, and everybody is already starting to lose their shit. Another 2 years, especially without entertainment, may well result in a mutiny. As a result, we need all the distractions we can get. This is proven in a meeting of the senior staff, which shows everybody is a little restless. After 4 years of people trying to kill them every other week, adapting to some downtime is proving difficult. Neelix has a few suggestions, but says the morale of the crew isn't being helped by an apparent absence of Captain Janeway. She's been in her quarters for most of the time, and people are starting to get concerned. B'Elanna, who I note has ditched the jacket from last season, puts it more plainly and calls the behaviour downright odd. Chakotay shuts it down a bit too forcefully and dismisses them. They leave and Chakotay goes to his chair on the bridge. Tangentially, none of the others from the meeting are on the bridge or leaving it when he gets there, suggesting they all left the briefing room via the other door. If the schematics I'm looking at are right, that door provides access for 2 toilets and an organic waste tank. I'll leave you to imagine for yourselves what they might have been doing in there. But I digress. Later, Neelix wakes from a nightmare. A look through the porthole offers no comfort, and he goes to the mess hall instead. It's 3 in the morning, but there are still people here, 2 of them being Paris and B'Elanna. Their often fiery interactions are being exacerbated by the boredom, and their bickering proves to be the last straw for Neelix. He tells them to shut the fuck up and act like adults before having a bit of a medical emergency. He's shouting on just a single lung, after all. A trip to the doc tells us it's nihilophobia, a fear of nothingness, and, after providing a sedative, he suggests Neelix will get used to it. He's got 2 years to make it work, after all. It seems he's not the only one struggling with the view. Tuvok's in astrometrics using big screen mode to show a starscape, explaining to a curious Seven that it assists in his meditation. A beeping console interrupts, informing them that there's some radiation wibblies ahead, potentially dangerous ones and from an unknown source. Chakotay updates Janeway on the matter personally, and she orders the ship to go take a look. With work out of the way, he invites her for a game of poop frisbee on the holodeck, but she declines. Turning down a chance to shoot something must mean things are pretty bad, so he just comes straight out and tells her that her absence is affecting the ship. The reason is because Janeway has become despondent. The adrenaline of the last 4 years meant she didn't have time to think about how they all came to be here, a distraction she no longer has, and the guilt is taking its toll. No amount of convincing from Chakotay will fix this, and he eventually leaves. We're all trying to keep entertained. Kim's playing the clarinet on the bridge for Tuvok, and Paris is introducing Seven to his Captain Proton holoprogram. A little shake of the ship gets our attention, exciting Kim enough that he vaults over the bridge railings. Doesn't he know those are only supposed to be used for throwing extras over when there's an explosion? Whatever did it has buggered up the power. We slow down and lights go off all over the ship. People scramble to figure out why, as even the warp core itself is proper shagged. I suppose we should consider ourselves lucky that it didn't result in a kaboom. Paris and Seven in the holodeck learn that isolated systems are still working. Life support is safe and the holodecks are on a different grid too. As an aside, why are the lights off in here then? Surely they'd be holographic and thus unaffected by the power failure. Seven tells Paris to try and use the generator from here to power other stuff, which I'm pretty sure we said we couldn't do back in the very second episode of the show, but let's ignore that for now. It doesn't work anyway, and we learned that the holodeck has frozen. I'd suggest that's why the lights aren't on, but it hasn't stopped the presumably holographic torch from working. While they faff about, Chakotay is tracking down the sound of someone having a panic attack. It's Neelix, of course, and Chakotay tries to comfort him while he puts a brave face on things. It might not have to be for long. Kim manages to get a little power back online, enough for sensors so we can see what the shit is going on. Turns out something to our left is draining us, but we can't tell what. The view screen's working, though you wouldn't know to look at it. Tuvok thinks farting out a modified firework could act as a flare, so we'll give that a try. Back on the holodeck, Paris is looking for a way out. What he actually finds is this lad here, and Paris gets knocked on his arse for the trouble. Seven tells the computer to disable the holodeck safeties, then grabs the fake gun off Paris and poops a holographic swirly at our intruder, causing it to join Paris on the floor. I guess that gun wasn't frozen either. It would appear our intruder isn't alone. Chakotay and Neelix find one and it rushes them, only to be pooped at before it can reach them. Pooped at by whom? Why, Janeway, of course, who seems to have gone and grabbed a gun before even learning that we had borders. I know we've joked about her hiding guns all over the ship before, but I'm starting to wonder whether we might have accidentally hit on the truth. On the bridge, Tuvok's finished dicking around with the firework flare and we fart it out. Looks like we have quite a bit of company. Good job then that Janeway's dragged a spare power cell to engineering. We use it to jumpstart the warp core and get power back online. Tuvok makes good use of it, turning on our shields and scanning for intruders. He tells Janeway that we've got 17 of the buggers and are surrounded by 3 ships, all of whom have now turned on their lights. I guess it's lucky they have people over here, or they'd already be pooping at us. After our calls are ignored, Janeway orders Tuvok to poop some warning yellow at one of the ships. It responds with blue poop of its own and not as a warning, so that plan's not going to work. While they sort that, Seven has helped Paris to the sickbay. He's a bit dinged up with severe facial burns. She leaves him there and goes to fetch the maybe unconscious, maybe dead alien in the holodeck. As she does, those ships do some more pooping, our shields go offline and the aliens start to drain power again. Then they abruptly stop and teleport their boarders off the ship. The reason for this might be the other incoming ship. A whole shitload of kabooms convince the first aliens to do some scarpering, and the new ship gives us a call. We're greeted by a lookalike of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen from Dune, and a speaking part suggests he's important, so it's time for Season 5's inaugural spin on the Wheel of Names, a little toy populated with suggestions from patrons of the channel. Our new guy's name is... Mick D. McDougal, suggested by Lieutenant Pedro Cortez. Mick D. McDougal tells us he expects to be compensated for those shells he just used before asking what the bloody hell we're doing in the middle of nowhere. We invite Mick D over to Voyager to properly thank him, but the teleporter has some issues. It seems our guest is chock full of the radiation we've been detecting. We correct for it and he arrives, but he isn't invited further into the ship as his suit is pissing goop all over the place. We thank him for the assist and he advises us to turn around, saying there are loads more of those aliens ahead. We can't do that, obviously, but he has good news. He uses a swirly to enter and exit the void. It takes us to the other side and knocks 2 years off our journey to boot. All he wants in exchange is the injured alien we have in sickbay. He refuses to answer questions on why, or questions about the significant radiation that his ship is spitting out. Mick D. McDougal will be leaving in a couple of hours, he says, and without us if we don't hand over that alien. Sounds like a story with 2 sides, so Janeway goes to sickbay to find out more. The lights have been dimmed as the alien is sensitive to them, probably a natural evolution from living in the void. The doc's healed his wounds from getting shot by Seven, not that it'll save him. You see, he's been exposed to significant radiation and over a long period of time. His whole body is proper shagged as a result. Time for that chat. After telling Bubble Boy here that we're not allied with Mick D. McDougal, he's a bit more talkative. Mick D and his kind have been poisoning Bubble Boy's people with radiation, though Bubble Boy says he has no idea why. A bit of a health wobble prompts the doc to suggest that his own people might know how to treat him if we can find them. Bubble Boy says he'll lead us, and Janeway agrees. Chakotay's still concerned about her though, enough to ask for advice from Tuvok. Tuvok's already guessed the reason behind her behaviour, the belief that her choice stranded them and the guilt that accompanies it. He recounts a story from her past where she put herself in danger rather than ask it of her crew twice, and Chakotay's concerned she may do something similar here. The two make an agreement to prevent it together if she should try to shoulder the burden herself. We arrive at the meeting point Bubble Boy told us about. Janeway helps him send out a signal and multiple ships appear around us. Scans show they're all suffering from the same radiation poisoning, and Bubble Boy says they aren't strong enough to fight Mickey McDougal and his mates. He begs Janeway for her help, saying she may have the means to close that swirly Mickey uses to get here. Bubble Boy's mates teleport him away before Janeway has the chance to answer. Back to Mickey McDougal we go, to find his ship dumping radiation all over the place. We call him to say we've returned our guest to his people and subsequently know what he's doing. Mickey explains that his people create radioactive waste from their industries in large quantities and need somewhere to put it. The swirly provided a solution. Rather than admonish his morals, Janeway offers an alternative. We know how to treat the waste so it's no longer harmful, and we're willing to share it with his people in exchange for passage. Mickey McDougal wants to see, and we invite him over again, this time to engineering. He's impressed with the tech, seeing how it would help his people. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be as profitable, so he's not going to do it. Appeals to reason fall on deaf ears, as Mickey McDougal is already perfectly happy with his business affairs. He's the only one who knows about the swirly, so his operating costs are half that of the people who dispose of this shit properly. And he's also got bigger guns than us. Any attempts to stop him with force would end poorly, he says, as he's escorted away by a security team. Janeway's not happy with the result and is looking at solving things without Mickey McDougal. Chakotay suggests scarpering through the swirly and telling Mickey McDougal's people what he's doing while providing them with the tech he declined. Problem is, there's no guarantee they'd want to use it any more than Mickey does, which is why she's looking at a way of closing the swirly. Janeway thinks it can be done, but only from this end, meaning there'd be no shortcut out. Obviously, this is the point at which Janeway wants to sacrifice herself, and she asks the crew to assemble. In reality, this means the people named in the opening credits rather than the entire crew, and they all wait for her on the bridge. After some short greetings, she tells everybody that they're to enter the swirly. She'll leave in a shuttle and close it down while everybody else escapes. Each of the crew in turn tell her to bollocks, refusing to comply with the order, except the people without names, obviously, but who gives a shit about their opinions? They don't even get to turn around. Besides, the crew have another idea: fart out a firework as we enter the swirly. We'll be racing a kaboom the whole way through, but everybody that has a talking role is fine with it, and that's what matters. Janeway isn't left with much of a choice, and accepts. It's not like she can just execute the crew. Not this many of them, anyway. Mickey McDougal isn't impressed with seeing us again, and uses up some more of those shells. We poop some yellow and fart fireworks in response, targeting a weakness caused by the irradiated cargo he carries. Not weakened enough, it seems, and Mickey keeps firing. We evade for long enough to reach the swirly, but our engines take a hit. We can't outrace the kaboom anymore, but maybe we can surf it. Janeway gets Tuvok to reinforce Voyager's arse shields, which B'Elanna was already doing, but let's ignore that for now. Mickey McDougal really doesn't want us getting away and moves to block the swirly. Handily, Bubble Boy's mates turn up and start pooping at him, so he has to fight them instead. This support is enough to let us break through Mickey's shields, and he dies in a big green kaboom. Voyager farts out some fireworks as it enters the swirly, and we ride the kaboom to the other end. Well, almost the other end. We fall a bit short, what with the exploding and all, but that does give us a chance to watch the stars appear, and everybody important gets to come up to the bridge to take a look as we fly away. Season 5 provides a solid start, and one in which we finally address the initial decision that stranded us here. Janeway's choice to destroy the caretaker array, and she's very clear in this episode that it was her choice, condemned them all to a 70-year trip. A chance to examine how that weight has affected Janeway is very welcome. We ultimately end up with everybody showing her their support, or do we? The scene where named characters tell her they won't let her sacrifice herself has at least 3 extras in the background. None of them even turn around, let alone provide their support. The bridge is already crowded, so was their addition an intentional counterpoint by the writers? Vocal support from the crew who have plot armor, while those in actual danger don't even acknowledge her presence. Maybe there is resentment there, but they remember that the 2 previous guys who expressed disapproval got melted by green death mist and eaten by Shai Hulud. I'm reading too much into this, I know, but that's the whole point of this endeavour, and it makes for a more interesting and believable narrative if there are at least a few people on board who would have told the caretaker to go fuck himself. Theorising aside, we ultimately end the story with a Janeway whose guilt is dispelled. Whilst that does likely mean we'll never touch upon it again, it's nice to have a nod back to one of the main plot points from 4 years prior. For a show I've regularly criticised for its lack of retrospection, we've been thoroughly blessed by the last 2 episodes. Speaking of which, I wonder if Janeway's confidence crisis was brought about by seeing the direct result of her actions in the Season 4 finale. If that was intentional, well played to whoever thought it up. There are a couple of other points I liked in this episode. Neelix suffering from nihilophobia is potentially a nod to his experience in Mortal Coil. The shock of having an expected afterlife replaced with nothingness is understandably going to give you a bit of a thing about it, and its inclusion here goes a little way towards addressing the very real psychological problems that many of the crew should have by now. It also gave Ethan Phillips another chance to lose his temper, something I tend to enjoy. Lastly, I confess I rather like the full-on ham and cheese sandwich that is Chaotica. I've got time for the occasional little bit of silly trash, but to consider it as such is to dismiss the thought that's been put into it. Chaotica's whip-crack of the microphone cable was particularly fun, a minor addition that's simultaneously both amusing and informs the viewer of his over-the-top egotism and evil. For a show where the comic relief is usually just silly character is silly, this whole scene was a delightful surprise. End of episode.
Hello, it's Space Dog again. I'm still trying to look for work, but studios just aren't hiring cartoon dogs anymore, not since all of that stuff about Scooby-Doo came to light. They still haven't found all the bodies. I might have to start considering other jobs, especially as the boss here says we're about halfway through this TV programme. He says he'll keep me around afterwards, but then he also said he were going to do a cookbook review, and we've not seen that shit yet, have we? Lying bastard. Woof.